it's Janelle Waz, and welcome back to another episode of Waz Reviews. Let's talk Star Wars Rogue Squadron. No, not that, because there's already a Star Wars Rogue Squadron. Well, two technically, but the one I'm talking about today is the well-loved Nintendo 64 game. You might recall that I did a review last year for the sequel to Rogue Squadron, Rogue Leader, for the GameCube. And now I'm talking about the first game, because this is Star Wars. Going out of order is a tradition. Rogue Squadron and the Rogue Squadron series, there are 3 games, all of which I own, is an X-Wing flight simulator game, although you can fly in other Star Wars aircrafts as well. While Rogue Leader mostly follows Wedge Antilles through the events between the destruction of both Death Stars, Rogue Squadron mainly takes place between episodes 4 and 5, and you play as Luke Skywalker. And since today is May 25th, the day Star Wars was released in theaters back in 1977, it only makes sense to talk about Rogue Squadron on this Star Wars day. Lock S-foils in attack position and cut the chatter. We're joining the Rogues across 16 missions in Star Wars Rogue Squadron on the Nintendo 64.
Red 2, standing by.
Red 5, standing by.
The menu opens up to a static picture of Luke Skywalker in his flight suit, climbing his X-Wing, and 2 menu options, Start and Options, a very streamlined menu. Enter your 3-letter name and start your career as a rogue as a trainee. We report to a briefing room to select our mission. Each mission has a title and a picture of the mission, as well as a nice voiceover that tells you what you're about to get into. While you don't necessarily need to earn medals in each mission to pass them, you're encouraged to go back to previous missions to do better and earn better medals so you can unlock secret aircraft and levels. Selecting a mission will show you the ships you can use for that mission. During the first playthrough, there is a specific ship you have to use to complete the mission, but once you beat it, you can replay most missions with different ships. And we come to the hangar bay. This is the part that really stuck in my head since I was a kid. You can flip back and forth between the different ships with a nice flyby around the hangar. And once you select a ship, you get a pretty sweet cutscene. And with that out of the way, Mission 1, Ambush at Mos Eisley. And we get an opening crawl! Yeah, that's right, Rogue Squadron has not 1, not 2, not even 3, but 4 opening crawls. Your move, Disney, your move. Anyway, the game starts with an opening crawl talking about how Luke Skywalker formed an elite collection of skilled X-Wing pilots called Rogue Squadron. Their mission? To protect strange new worlds from the Empire. To seek out bad ties and bad TIE bombers. To boldly go where no rebel has gone before. Good morning, Mos Eisley. It's a beautiful day for a flight in an X-Wing through Beggar's Canyon on Tatooine.
Never coming back to this planet again.
This is a pretty easy mission to get used to the controls and handling of the X-Wing. Your main enemies in this level are Imperial probe droids, which don't move much and don't have the best aim or firepower, and a handful of TIE bombers. Simply protect Mos Eisley.
You will never find a more wretched hive of scum and villainy
From the Empire, and you're good to go.
Nice work, Rogue Squadron. We might make a name for ourselves after all.
Next up, Rendezvous at Barkesh, an escort mission. Because those are always fun. We have to escort a rebel convoy through Imperial territory, which seems like a bad idea, but whatever. Supplies gotta go where they gotta go, am I right? Personally, I like to scout ahead and take care of any possible enemies on the route. Of course, it doesn't mean I won't get yelled at for it.
It's imperative you stay with the supply vehicle.
Just be careful that the convoy is going where you think it's going, otherwise you'll have to race back to protect them.
Rogue Squadron, where's our cover?
Ah yes, the familiar sounds of my childhood. The nostalgia.
Rogue Squadron, where's our cover?
For some reason, the other rogues are ineffective at the simplest of missions unless you're there to shoot down the majority of TIEs. Skilled pilots might.
How rude.
Alright, the supplies are safe. Now it's time for a little search and rescue of the Nona, a downed rebel ship. This is the first mission where we have to use an A-Wing, and yeah, I'm not a big fan of the A-Wing. I mean, sure, they're fast, but like in Rogue Leader, they're also weaker than the X-Wing.
Shields are a little weak. Stay low. I'm hit! Rear shield's down! I'm hit! Yeah!
But honestly, the hard part of this mission isn't the firefights. Instead, it's escorting the Rebel shuttle, which keeps getting shot down.
We've just lost contact with the shuttle.
When it leaves the Nona, do not leave that shuttle, even to shoot down other TIEs. Yeah, you practically need to hold its hand until the end of the mission. It's a little annoying, but it's thoroughly doable.
Rogue Leader, get your squadron out of there.
Alright, time to head to Corellia, the homeworld of Star Wars fan favorites Han Solo and Wedge Antilles. Crix Madine is defecting, and we have to protect Corellia from Imperial retaliation. The speeder? Oh no. Oh no. The mission starts out quiet enough.
Picking up something strange on my scope.
Oh, that's never good.
Very bad feeling about this.
And of course the Imperials are attacking Corellia. Your main concern is to stop the city from being destroyed, so it's probably a good idea to take out the TIE bombers whenever you can.
Hold on, Wedge.
Hey, I know that growl and that yeehaw!
How you doing, kid? Thought I might give you a hand. This is my hometown, after all.
Weirdly enough, Corellia is also Wedge's homeworld, but he doesn't really react differently in this mission than any other mission. How are we getting more out of Han, who we know next to nothing about, than one of the main characters in this game? How?
We spotted an Imperial walker on approach to the Capitol Tower.
Well, I knew this was coming. This is definitely one of the worst parts in any of the Rogue Squadron games, but particularly in this one. Using tow cables on the walkers, or AT-ATs, and yes, that's how I say it. I've made my peace with this over time, and even in Rogue Leader, I got reasonably good at it, but it's still a pain in the... You have to tie up the walkers in a bit of a confined space, all while trying not to crash with sometimes disastrous results.
Activate harpoon.
A lot of this mission requires you to maneuver in small areas, and not just for tying up the walkers, but also when attacking the AT-STs. I usually need a lot of space to get them in 1 or 2 sweeps, but in this mission, I have to do even more just to take them out. It also doesn't help that most of the level looks super dark on my TV, almost like I'm flying into or next to a void. Well, we had to evacuate the town, but with the evacuation completed and Han remarking on the destruction of the Corellian city where he grew up,
That was never my favorite building anyway.
it's time to liberate Gerard 5, which is being looted by an Imperial general. Most of the mission is flying cover for the Y-Wings, which involves taking out turrets and TIEs.
Don't worry, we're not so helpless.
Yes, not so helpless. You'll also be introduced to the infamous targeted turrets in this mission, which will no doubt announce themselves if you get close enough. I highly recommend taking these out as soon as you see them. They do a lot of damage and are almost impossible to outrun. You can shoot down the missiles, but I've really only had limited success with that. Meanwhile, on the other side of the planet, Wedge warns Luke of the imminent arrival of the 128th TIE Interceptor Squadron.
They're the best of the best. Cut the chatter.
Wedge gets told that once during the first movie, and he never hears the end of it.
Look at the size of that thing.
Cut the chatter, Red 2.
These TIEs are stupid hard to shoot down, and I'm not even sure why. I'm not the best Rogue Squadron player, but I've gotten decently good over the years. But these TIEs...
They're the best of the best.
Like shooting Y-Wings, do ya?
Are you quite done? My vehicle has been disabled for a good 2 minutes now.
The pilot of that TIE is Kessel Moore, voiced by actress Olivia Hussey, and probably the biggest name in this cast list.
If you quit shooting at me, I have a proposal to make. One which would serve us all.
With the mission, the Jade Moon, Kessel has joined Rogue Squadron, having decided to defect from the Empire, largely due to her homeworld Alderaan being blown up. and she starts to supply the rogues with Imperial intelligence. Suffice to say, Wedge is understandably a little skeptical.
Luke, how do we know Kaysen isn't leading us right into a trap? Not now, Wedge.
No, Luke, that's seriously a good point. How well do they really know Kaysen more? How do they know she can be even trusted? Wedge just got Worf denied.
But I recommend we go to Red Alert.
Not yet.
Voice a legitimate security concern just to be shut down. Probably should have been brought up before going on the mission, but still, Wedge has a point.
For the sake of the ship and the Federation, I request reassignment.
Denied.
The mission involves covering the rebel commandos on the ground. Just keep the ties and turrets off them. This mission isn't too difficult, but again, I highly recommend taking out the guided missile turrets early on so they don't cause you too much trouble.
That's all for the Imperial forces.
Up next is taking out a base where walkers are produced, and unfortunately, part of this mission is stealth. Because it's easy being stealthy in a flight simulator game.
We're getting a little close to those scanners. The base is alerted. Your security is compromised. Abort the mission.
This is a bit reminiscent of a mission in Rogue Leader, which I guess would have been inspired by this mission, but either way, I'm not a fan of stealth missions. The good thing here is that you can destroy the sensors so they can't see you coming. I mean, that beats meticulously flying around the sensors, am I right?
Bring them on. I prefer a straight fight to all this sneaking around.
Next up, we're, once again, wrecking another Imperial military target, but this time on Kyle 2, in a Y-Wing. I'm going to level with you all here. I do not like Y-Wings. It's not the most hated craft in this game for me, but I do not like them. Sure, their secondary weapon, advanced bombs, are very effective when targeting structures on the ground, but they're slow, they're not great against ties, which are practically breaking warp by comparison, and despite Luke's claims to the contrary,
Maybe slow, but they can take a beating.
they cannot take a beating. I mean, these are the ships I had to fly cover for a few missions ago. I'll even take an A-Wing over this. At least they can move fast enough to dodge fire.
Don't worry, we're not so helpless.
But to be honest, this isn't even the most frustrating mission with the Y-Wing. Oh no, that one's coming up.
I got a bad feeling about this.
Luke, it's an ambush. We just off Rogue 7. Attention.
Wedge, buddy!
Increase speed, full throttle.
In a Y-Wing? Good luck with that. I'm also just going to observe that Kaysen gave the rogues the intelligence on this base that led into an ambush. Okay, slight spoilers. Kaysen is legitimately a member of Rogue Squadron. She's not a spy or a mole or anything like that. But some of the stuff she says is ever so slightly suspicious.
You're fighting for your own ideals now.
Yes.
I mean, can we really blame Wedge for being a little skeptical of her? She also spends a lot of time saying how she's on the other side now.
It feels strange, though, being on the other side. Now I know what it's like to be on the other side of one of these little raids.
We get it, Kaysen! You were an Imperial!
Are you quite done?
You must find Wedge before the Imperials deliver him to the prison facilities and certain death.
Oh, it's go time. We're getting our boy back. We're coming for you, Wedge! So we're on Kessel, and Kaysen insists that Wedge is on a train nearby. Of course, one of the rogues tells Luke his scanners are reading human life signs in another direction.
That's not them. Follow the hover train.
Kaysen, I'm just saying you might have led us into a trap the last time around.
Luke, how do we know Kaysen isn't leading us right into a trap? Here's your ion cannon. We want to disable the train, not destroy it. You can't watch me. Wedge!
So, that happened. Perhaps this is a bit of a failing of mine, but for some reason I'm always confusing the accelerate and secondary weapons buttons, leading to moments like this. Besides that, this mission wasn't too hard, and I got our boy back.
Wedge!
Good to hear from you, Antilles. How was the hover train?
Food was good, but the service was lousy.
But of course, one prison break isn't quite enough. We're going in for round 2. We're freeing more prisoners from Kessel. This is of course another escort mission, and one that I've had trouble with over the years. You can't just rush through this mission because you have to follow Crix Maydine's shuttle as it goes from the different prison facilities picking up prisoners. You're up against TIEs, TIE bombers, turrets, AT-STs, the works. There's nothing really new in this mission, but the number of enemies gunning for the shuttle makes for a very challenging mission.
Good work, Rogue. General Maydeen, we'll fly your boys around when we get back to the fleet.
You're on, Commander Skywalker. Good luck.
Talaran, it's a beauty.
It's also the point in the game where it gets significantly harder. See, the first 10 missions I completed over the course of 2 gaming sessions, about 5 per session. Now, I'm lucky if I can get past 1 or 2 per session. This is also the point in the game where the plot starts to emerge. Now we have a villain, Moff Searden, who is capturing resources to squash the Rebel Alliance. We're on Talaran, aka Bespin's big brother, to destroy the Imperial supply of Tabanna gas. You're supposed to be shooting at the Imperial tanks, and you will get reprimanded if you destroy civilian tanks. The problem is that even if I'm not shooting at the civilian tanks, let alone destroying them, I still get the blame.
The blue ones are civilians. Let's check our fire.
I was over there chasing a TIE! I wasn't even anywhere near the tanks!
Check your fire, Skywalker. Those are civilians.
I wasn't even firing!
Skywalker, what are you doing?
Really, Kaysen? Really? You sure it wasn't you?
Luke, how do we know Kaysen isn't leading us right into a trap?
Oh no, not another speeder mission! Oh no. Discount Hoth. Yep, more walkers. Alright.
Excellent work, Rogue Squadron.
Oh look, another escort mission. And you have to protect a city? Again? Yeah, there are some missions in this game that feel a lot like repeats. How many times do we have to wreck a military target? Didn't we already protect a city from Imperial retaliation? And aid in an evacuation? Oh no. Oh no. Oh. Raid on Sullust. This mission is definitely the worst in this game, and I can see people giving up on Rogue Squadron because of this mission. You don't know how far your patience can stretch until you've played this mission. It took me around 3 hours! Let's get into it. The entire mission takes place inside a volcano, and you have to take out transmitters powering a shield around a generator that needs to be destroyed. The problem? There are guided missile turrets everywhere. You can't go 2 seconds in this level without hearing...
I've lost R2.
And the kicker? You're in a Y-wing!
They may be slow, but they can take a beating.
Why must you turn my office into a house of lies?
Didn't even scratch me.
Even stupidly enough, I would destroy all the transmitters after how many attempts, only to die trying to destroy the generator because I didn't know you had to hit these things! I had to repeat this level so many times! But eventually, the generator came down.
Moff Searden has begun his attack on Cyphera.
He used us. This was all a diversion.
Oh, son of a... That's it. We're going after Searden for that little stunt. I mean, sure, Searden may have captured our Bacta supplies, but that son of a... which made me go through that mission. It's on now.
Commander Skywalker.
Searden! How you doing? You sent me into a volcano. I'm a little mad.
You and Rogue Squadron will all die.
Nah, we still got 3 games and a book series to cover.
Ah!
That was for Sullust.
Woohoo! Great job, Rogue Squadron. The Imperials won't get Thyfira now.
Finally, we reached the last mission, the Battle of Calamari. Shouldn't that be Mon Calamari?
The World Devastators are raining destruction on the peaceful world of Mon Calamari.
The game shoots ahead 6 years after the Battle of Endor. Darth Vader is dead, but a reborn empire under a mysterious new leader strikes back at the struggling Rebel Alliance, hoping to crush the fledgling New Republic. Thrawn, is that you? No, apparently it's a Palpatine clone. That's right, Disney wasn't the first to try that one. Wedge now commands Rogue Squadron, so you play as Wedge for this mission. From what I understand, Luke is a bit occupied at this point in the timeline. The mission has you flying, a V-Wing. I hate the V-Wing. Picture taking a paper airplane into a war zone, and you have the V-Wing. Oh sure, the game tries to sell you on the whole, it's super fast and has lots of weapons thing, but you're constantly being shot out of the sky. Not to mention, your weapons burn out a lot, you crash into stuff because it's so fast, and even fighting TIEs is a pain. I can see why this craft never appeared in the sequels. It's awful. With a little luck,
In my experience, there's no such thing as luck.
you use the V-Wing to stop the 3 World Devastators from destroying Mon Calamari, and then fight off the TIEs, which again is kinda tough in a V-Wing. I desperately switched to cockpit mode, took out the last TIE fighter, and then beat the mission. How? I still don't know.
We saved another world from the Empire. We did well here today. Let's go home.
The game finishes off with a nice flyby by 3 X-Wings and the worlds that they helped save. Or just Corellia, which they just helped evacuate. And then the credits roll. And that was Star Wars Rogue Squadron. And you know what? Despite its roughness on the Nintendo 64, it's still a pretty good game. Sure, it has its frustrating moments, don't even get me started on that mission. And it has some hardware limitations. I know some slowing down in some areas, tow cabling the walkers is a chore, and the graphics didn't age all that well. But it's a classic Star Wars and N64 game still worth playing today. There are some really fun missions, and you're encouraged to go back and replay missions for better medals, so the replayability in this game is very high. The story also fits well in the Star Wars universe between episodes 4 and 5, and the characters are believable Star Wars characters. Sure, Luke probably sounds more experienced than he would have been in that point in the trilogy, but he still sounds like Luke. And that's not just because Bob Bergen does a pretty solid impression of Mark Hamill. I would like to see this game, as well as the other Rogue Squadron games, come to modern game consoles. But for the console experience, you'll have to find yourself an N64 cartridge. Alternatively, there is Rogue Squadron 3D, which you can get off of Steam and GOG, which, as far as I know, is the only way to enjoy this game on modern hardware. Whichever way you choose to enjoy the game, Rogue Squadron is a great way to fly the friendly skies of Star Wars.
I've lost R2.
So what do you think? Have you played Rogue Squadron before? Did you love it? Did you hate it? How did you enjoy this game? On the N64 or PC? And what are some of your favorite Star Wars games? Please, leave comments below and discuss. And before you go, make sure you check out my review for the Rogue Squadron sequel, Rogue Leader. It's an older review, but it checks out.
It's an older code, sir, but it checks out.
As always, thanks for tuning in to another episode of Woz Reviews on Star Wars Day. If you like what you see, why not give my video a like and subscribe to my channel? Tell your friends! Until next time...
Man, I thought I was the best.